Hello everybody, welcome to the United Front. This is your Manchester United transfer news as Sesko talks continue between Manchester United, but obviously they have a competitor in Newcastle. Apparently Sancho back to Dortmund could be possible. Reports coming from Sky Germany, and obviously we don't know if this we will get a midfield before the Premier League or even the transfer window closes, but I'm pretty sure you guys have different opinions on which midfield we should go to. So let's get started with obviously Sesko. So obviously Platigo has Leipzig has reported obviously that Leipzig have valued Sesko at 69.4 million, so basically rather up 70 million. Now, I know we were looking at Watkins, but if you know Watkins is going to be worth 60 million, and I know he's Premier League proven, but someone who's 29, almost 30, and you're paid 60 million, why don't you just spend that money on someone who, 10 million more, on someone who's could be one of the best talents in European football, and you have so many years in him in Sesko. Look, who knows? At this moment, you could say he's peaking right now, but could he elevate himself more? So look, if we're looking to spend that much money, then we might as well go with Sesko because he gives you more years, and Watkins has 4 years in him. So why don't you go with Sesko? So look, obviously the problem is that you got Newcastle. Now obviously apparently he preferred United, but obviously Newcastle are still in the race to sign him. Now obviously we always talk about who has advantages when it comes to transfers, and in this particular one, it's Newcastle because finance is not a problem, and they've got something that we don't, which is Champions League football. Now, you can have a club that you're competing with, and say, you know what, maybe he doesn't want to go to you, not because of the stature of the club. Maybe he's just, looking at a team like United and thinking, it's Manchester United, whatever. Don't forget as well, you could say the same with Lenny Yoro. I mean, it was between him and Real Madrid, and he could have joined Madrid, but he thought, you know what, I'll join Manchester United. Now, obviously, there is luck because it's Real Madrid. I know some United fans, most United fans say we're the biggest club in the world. I don't think so. I think we're the biggest club in England, but not in the world, because for me it's either between Barcelona or Real Madrid. And obviously he rejected them and joined Manchester United. You could say that with Sesko in terms of like rejecting Champions League football and joining Manchester United. Now, seeing obviously United and Newcastle putting their projects out, realistically when you see Newcastle's project, whatever they put out to him, it seems more realistic because Newcastle are getting better year in, year out. Now, of course, maybe Isa might go. They might not be that same Newcastle, but they're getting better each year. Whereas United, they're a work in progress. We keep sacking managers more than we won trophies. It's unreal, and it's crazy because how should he feel doubts about United because of the last decade, or where this team could go? Could they reach Champions League football? Could they be a team that could compete for the Premier League and the Champions League? Like, you need to think of that as well. So that could be playing to his head, but as I said before, in terms of advantage, it goes to Newcastle. But as soon as the player says, I want to join this club over that club, then you know that you already won it. Unless you know, let's just say he picks United, which is more likely he's gonna pick, apparently from reports, and we apparently fucked that up, you know, just due to our slow negotiations, not getting negotiations when it's supposed to be done. You know, you never know. He picks United, we take so long. Newcastle already put a bid in, and then he picks Newcastle like that. So, look, I mean, when doing negotiations, it also impacts the patience of a player as well. Like, apparently, Mboma was frustrated because of, not only because of Brentford not allowing him to go to United, it's because United taking that long to sign him, you know. So that also plays a part, but obviously we're not here to talk about Mboma because that's done. But with Sesko, I mean, apparently he wants to join United, that puts advantage into us. Now, all we have to do is put a bid in, and we'll see where it goes from there. But obviously we're low on funds. This is why I said advantage clearly goes to Newcastle, because finance isn't a problem. But you never know. I know he's saying that he might prefer United, but what if he wants Champions League football like that? Because it was at one point where Gyökeres wanted United, but everything changed after the final. Now obviously we're not playing a game that requires us to play in the Champions League. That's gone. But I don't want it to be deja vu, where it's like what we were doing with Gyökeres, another team just goes and gets him, and we just like all that time wasted and obviously not getting him was like, wow, like it's just a waste. So hopefully it doesn't happen with Sesko. But look, around 70 million. Look, I know it's expensive. I know people are saying his stats, but look, I'm not saying he's in Haaland. You know, Haaland is like a machine, but you never know. You never know with Sesko. He might be like coming from the Bundesliga to the Prem and rip it up. You never know. Especially with Cunha and Bomo behind him. I mean, you look at that front three, I'm thinking, it looks good on paper. Surely it looks good on the pitch as well. So, you know. But obviously, look, one thing that really kills us is just outgoings, because we can't keep signing players and not have outgoings. Like, look, we have to pay for previous transfers like Ugarte, De Ligt, Mazraoui, Xerxes, Euro. You know, now we have to pay for, obviously, that includes Cunha and Mboma. You know, we need to sell players. And obviously, we'll get onto Anthony, but you know, if we get money from one of the outgoings, which is more likely Garnacho or Anthony, then it's great. It's great. But, you know, we do need the money. So, you know, but look, I think obviously it is. Look, I did say in my previous video, it will take a while. It will take a while, and it all depends on this week. So obviously positive news to hear that, but you know, all we need to hear about is, you know, positive agreements, green lights, here we goes and all that. So, you know, but anyway, I want to talk about COLLYER. So a bit of like, look, obviously it's a long show, it's probably positive and negative at the same time. About COLLYER, so hearing this about, look, he wants to stay at United, but apparently Amrin wants him to go out loan. Look, you could say you put him out loan, but what's the point? Now I know people are gonna say, well, we got too many people in midfield, but why does he need to go out loan? But I said this before. If people thinking Mainu should play in midfield, which I always said, and people are thinking, oh, well, where's his best position? COLLYER in that double pivot role is more suitable than Mainu is in that role as well. You know, I've always said he's an 8 and 6, whereas Mainu, he was before a 6, then he became an 8, and then you see him scoring goals, you probably say he's a 10. So it's versatile with Mainu, but with COLLYER, I think I think he's a great player. Like, obviously, unfortunately, injuries have obviously held him back from last season, but I want him to stay, and apparently we were about to sell him, but then I thought to myself, sell him, but you're willing to sell Collier, but you're not willing to sell Casemiro, which is funny because he's gonna go away next year on a free, and let me tell you something. When he goes on free, so many clubs will look at him thinking, "Oh, let's get Casemiro. He's world class and everything." And I'm thinking to myself, "Well, where was all that relevancy before? Where was all that news coming from?" So, if people thinking, "Oh, Collier should be on loan," I mean, no. I mean, clear out Casemiro before you even want to think about Collier, because Collier's one for the future, and I hope he stays at United because there is a player in him. But Casemiro, if you're willing to loan out Collier, I mean, there's just no point because in our midfield roster, we're not very in depth there. And look, if they want to sign a midfielder, fair enough. Put Collier on loan. But I'm not seeing any news about us, moving from a midfielder. I mean, we're prioritizing a striker anyway, so I don't think, unless we get a midfielder, I don't think we should know Collier. Like, just think about it. So, if we think about it, you got Bruno, you got Ugarte, you got Mane, you got Casemiro, and you got Collier. That's 5. I feel like that's enough, especially when we're in Europe. You're going to be looking at the FA Cup, the League Cup, and obviously the league in itself. So, I feel like 5 players that fit in that pivot too, it's quite enough. I don't think... Look, what if Manu has an injury? What if Casemiro has an injury? What if Collier, let's just say, has an injury? At least you have backup. Having 4 midfielders that play in that pivot role, that's not enough. At least you have one extra, unless Sesko Saga is integrated into the first team. But obviously we haven't seen him even. Look, he's on the bench, but we haven't seen him come on the pitch on tour. So but look, I hope he doesn't go because I think there's a player in him, and there's no point because it's like deja vu again. When they came to the January transfer window, he loaned that. Sancho was gone anyway. He loaned that Rashford, he loaned that Anthony, he loaned that Malacia. Who did he replace? Okay, probably Malacia. Bringing in Dortmund. Who else? He didn't replace no one. So it got to the point where we only had 3 attackers. It was Xerxes, it was Højlund, and it was Garnacho. That were only 3 attackers. And you're thinking to yourself, well, what if Anthony and Rashford were there? That wouldn't be a problem. But he was depleting the squad then. Why does he need to reduce the squad now? It doesn't make sense. So, But anyway, not Sancho. Anthony. Just about Anthony. Obviously, reports saying that he had Saudi, obviously before from yesterday. Apparently, Betis put a bid in about 20 million euros and 50% release clause. Now, I don't know whether that's insulting or they're just desperate because they're trying to pay. They're either willing to pay his wages but for a low transfer fee, or they pay the transfer fee and Anthony needs to reduce his wages, which is obviously unlikely because despite him wanting to play for Betis, he's not willing to reduce his wages, which is funny because if you're willing to play for Betis and want to get out of United, you lower your wages. Look at Rashford. I know it's a loan, but he lowered his wages so he could have his dream move to Barcelona. I don't understand why Anthony can't do that. Same with Garnacho. His obsession staying in the Prem, where no offers have come in from. But I mean, I'll talk about Garnacho apparently because Fabrizio said that Xavi Simons' transfer impacts Chelsea's move for Garnacho, which is, I don't know how, because another left wing possible even after Gittins due to Quenda arriving in 2026. Madrid unavailable, Sancho returning to United, and a chance for Tyree George to go on loan. So, you know what? I mean, honestly, Chelsea's absolutely a joke. They know they got players. They know they got players, and yet they want to buy more. It's just, I mean, they're an absolute joke. I mean, I always keep moaning about, you know, Liverpool, you know, the amount of signings, that they're not breaking the law or anything. You get City with their 115 charges. But you're looking at Chelsea and people say, oh, but we're selling. Yeah, I understand you're selling because you're doing a Lucozade method, you know. You buy a £5 for a packet of 8 Lucozade bottles and sell it for £1 each. That's what Chelsea do. That's what they're trying to do. They're not trying to see if they're good enough. They're just trying to make profit out of players. They're an absolute joke, you know. I even forgot Quenda was even joining Chelsea. You know, but no, they want another left winger in Gittins. They want Xavi Simons, and apparently Garnacho's still a player for them. He can still join them. They're absolutely a joke. I mean, they got more depth than a fucking swimming pool. It's unreal. It's absolutely unreal. And look, we can't do anything about it. It's only up to FA, but they're not doing shit. So what can you do? What can you do? And you know what? I hope the signings they make, they're better impact on the pitch, because they make all these signings and it goes to waste. But anyway, we're not talking about Chelsea. This is the Chelsea stand or front, whatever. But back to Anthony, as I was saying, you know, if he wants to join Betis, he lowers wages, we get the money we want. You know, but knowing Anthony, he's not going to do that, because it's all about money for people. And you know, it's like, look, if he wants money, he'd go Saudi. But I don't think he even wants to go Saudi. I think he still wants to play in Europe. You know, unlike some people who still are in their mid-20s and playing in Saudi. You know, Anthony probably wants to stay and play in Europe. So I don't blame him for that. But if that's the case, then, and if you really want to have your dream move to Betis, then lower your wages. But you won't do that. So, but yeah, this situation with Anthony is just, I mean, look, Anthony's situation links with Sesko, because we don't know what's going with Sancho, we don't know what's going with Garnacho, there's no clubs linked with him, and no one's going for Malasis. So who is the only player that we're more likely to get rid of? Is Anthony, but we can't get the money that we want, and he won't know his wages. So that's where our problem is. And if he would do that, and we get the money, then we go for Sesko. That's easy. But look, Anthony links with Sesko. We need money to spend money, and we're obviously broke. But to have money, you know, we need to sell players that need to go, and they're not going. And this is where it gets hard. Not only are we bad at buying players, overpricing them or whatever, we're bad at selling. And this is what happens when you give them unrealistic wages, because clearly no one in fucking Europe would give them that much money. That's the problem. This is the problem with United. You give them unrealistic wages where clearly in Europe no one paid for that. So who's that onto? It's United. And this is why Sancho doesn't want to. This is why Sancho doesn't want to go. This is why he wants United to pay him, because everyone knows no one pay him that wage, and we're dickheads for that anyway. So anyway, I hope we don't make the same mistake that we do with any other player. You know, and this is why they want Vlahovic. Because what if he turned out to be a bad player, turned out to be another Sancho, and we were trying to offload him, but we couldn't. Why? Because he was on high wages. So anyway, but look, if Anthony gives an absolute shit, if he look, World Cup's coming around next year, if he wants to play in that tournament, it's everyone's dream. If he really gives a shit about his career, he'd go lower his wages, and we get the fee that we want. You look at Rashford. I know he wanted his dream move anyway, but he halved his wages and Barcelona got him. I know it took time, but this was due to because Nico Williams wasn't joining and Luis Diaz. So he obviously got his dream move, but he only did that because he wants to play football and he wants to be in the World Cup. Unlike Garnacho and Anthony, they're just waiting. Like, they're just waiting. So, But anyway, a negative comes another one. Sancho, apparently reports coming from Sky Germany that Dortmund want to buy him. Now, initially I thought before Chelsea loaned him, he'd go to Dortmund. Obviously, apparently he did so well that he was one of the reasons why they even won in the Champions League final, and Dortmund didn't want him. Now, look, I'd probably say he would join them. What's the problem? Wages. I don't know how much he was earning at Dortmund, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't a lot compared to United. So, look, I don't care who comes from Sancho. If you want Sancho, pay the money. But again, this is the problem. We pay so much money to players that are not even worth it, and it's so hard to get rid of them. This is why I say, give them realistic wages, not this bullshit about 200k or whatever. Like, obviously, when we signed Sancho, was he worth 250k, 300? Absolutely not. But at the time, his talent and whatever, you'd probably say, give him the wages. But this has always been a problem. So, I don't care which team we go for. I couldn't give a toss because he's named freedom fighter or whatever. But look, Juventus or Dortmund, I couldn't give a shit. Just take him, get rid of him, and that's it. So, But anyway, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I mean, I didn't even want to talk a lot about Sancho anyway, because lose so many brain cells. Anyway, midfield problem. Now, I said my part on midfield. I've said this so many times. Apparently, people want Baleba. Now, I understand. You like the player. Look, I like him. Very good player. But honestly, think realistically. If we can't get Himmels, who Amrin wants, but is worth a lot of money, apparently 80 million release clause a year. How can we get Baleba when knowing Brighton they're gonna absolutely shag us for 150 million? I mean, do we have 150 million? Because if we did, we go for Isak. But no, we don't, because we're broke. So, look, I understand people saying, they want Baleba and he'll be great. But come on, think realistically. You clearly know we can't go for him because Brighton, again, they're good at selling. They get a lot of funds from the potential. And look, Baleba's a great player because for Brighton, he was technically their Caicedo replacement. And he did so well. Hell, he might even be worth more than Caicedo. But look, this whole midfield problem is just, it just hurts your head, but you really want a midfielder in. Now, I said my part on midfield. I said Palacios from Leverkusen. I don't know what you guys think about him, but fits the system. He's everything you want in a midfield anyway. I think he'll be great at United. But this is the thing. We're not linked. This is the thing. There's no point talking about players we're not linked with. Despite. And this is the thing as well with Baleba. Apparently many United fans want him, but realistically he's worth a lot. You guys need to think. Look, if that was the case, I'd plead to United. Can we get Mbappe? Because if people saying they want Baleba, okay, I'll be deluded by saying I want Mbappe, I want Vinicius, I want fucking Jude Bellingham. Let me be deluded. I mean, come on, it's just knowing Brighton are known for selling for a lot of money, and they're good at selling. They're probably the best team when it comes to selling, to be honest, in recent years anyway. You know, with McAllister, Colwell. I mean, the Colwell. I don't know. I think probably Colwell's a lot. Caicedo, João Pedro, Estupinian, Sanchez, and there's probably a few. But my point is Pascal Gross. But my point is that knowing these previous transfers, and especially in today's market and inflation and all that BS, how much do you think they're gonna value him? At least minimum 90 million. You know? And why do you think no club's gone for him? Because you clearly know how much they're gonna value Baleba at. So I wouldn't be surprised we wouldn't get him. Why? Because he's expensive. So look, I like the player. I really like the player. But you need to think as well, do we have the money to make that money? Because I'll tell you something, if we had Todd Bowley under him, fair enough, make your point, say get Baleba. You know, but we don't have the funds. You know, we're struggling to even pay for previous transfers. How are we going to pay for Baleba? It really doesn't make sense. But I've said my part midfield. I'd get Palacios again. What do you guys think about him? There's more to him. Again, look, we can't even get him, so what's the point of getting Baleba? Apparently there was this player called Guerta. Guerta. Sorry, where is he from? Villarreal? No, he's from Valencia. Yeah, Javi Guerra. Yeah, not Guerta. Guerra. Yeah. So apparently, United are looking at him. Again, unfortunately, I haven't seen much of him. But apparently, from United fans, they like the player. Obviously, he's 22 years old. Obviously, Amrin wants him. Fits the profile, and you know, could be potential for to come to United. But obviously, look, I mean, look, how much do they value Guerra? I don't know. But look, this is the problem with midfield. Like, there's not even a point talking about midfield if we're not gonna prioritize getting the striker. Because look, if we do get a striker before Arsenal game, who do we go for next? Goalkeeper? Because that looks more likely, with obviously Amri not liking Anana, and obviously buying there probably put him into the same category. So, you know, I don't think we're actually going to get a midfielder this summer transfer window, unfortunately. But look, even to get a midfielder, we need to sell one anyway, and I hope it's fucking Casemiro, because he's going to fuck up next year. There's no point selling COLLYER when COLLYER doesn't deserve to go. Casemiro is going to go anyway if COLLYER goes. So you're left with 3 midfielders. So there's just no point. I mean, this has been a problem, you know. We're talking about a position we're not really prioritizing first, but it's still such a headache for United fans. So that's where it's so what's the word? A headache. So, you know. But anyway, just trying to see if there's any news left. Oh, okay. Back to Sancho. Jadon Sancho is still being discussed internally at Dortmund. Manchester United wants around 18 to 20 million euros. So I don't know what's that, 18 million euros. So 50 million pounds to, I guess, 70 million. So wow, his value dropped. And that's coming from Burger PJ. Now, I don't know if that's really reliable, but look, again, I said it before, I don't give a toss who comes for Sancho. Just sell him. Who cares? Whoever buys him, that's their problem now. You know. And look, it's his last year as well. Same with Casemiro. Get rid of these players before they're gonna go on a free. And when you had the chance to sell them, you didn't. So, you know. But anyway. That's it for today's show. What's today's date? I mean, it's Monday. So technically 3 days, but 3.5 days. Because the game's at 2:30. I mean, it'll be hard for me to stay awake. But, you know, apart from that, no news. So thank you guys for watching. Take care. See you in the next one.